that right there explains to all of you the reason that it's nobody else's fault, anything that happens to you. And while we acknowledge it sure feels better to blame somebody else than it does to accept your own stupidity. Oh, well, we got just a little carried away there. Than it does to accept your own guilt. In every case, whatever is coming to you is a vibrational indicator of what you've got going on vibrationally. And so if we were standing in your physical shoes and something happened in our experience and we did not like it, we would bring ourselves into an awareness of what we prefer, and we would practice the preference so often and so vividly that there could never again be confusion on the part of the universal manager who arranges all campsites for all campers. Talk about a really effective concierge in the sky. If you've done an effective focus wheel where you have known what you don't want and launched in what you do want, have you watched the acrobat who just comes on the stage and jumps from where he is, compared to the acrobat who jumps maybe off of a platform onto something that bounces him further? In other words, there's a bounce that you get. There's a bounce that you get in knowing what you don't want. And so that focus wheel is part of that bounce. In other words, I know what I don't want, and what I do want is already launched. And then when you make the effort to get in sync with that energy that is already in motion, you feel some momentum from it. And from that momentum, that's the perfect momentum to go into a list of positive aspects. And a list of positive aspects is the perfect momentum to go into a rampage of appreciation. And by rampage, we mean just sort of letting it take you away, just milking it, even irrationally milking it. So the other day, something's going on. Esther's feeling uncomfortable about it. She said, hey, the good news is we're creating something really wonderful over there where we can't see it. But it's good to know. Isn't it good to know? If we can convince you in this short time that we're together today about the existence of this vibrational reality, if you leave here accepting the reality of this vibrational reality, and then we're able to show you how you can focus yourself there regardless of what's going on over here in your reality, you will find relief immediately. A woman said, I cannot pay my mortgage and I don't know what to do. And we wanted to bring her into the vortex. We wanted her to think hopeful thoughts. She was really stubborn. She didn't want to really do that. She wanted to face reality. But once we were able to convince her that she can't, in this moment, while we're having a conversation with her, she can't produce out of thin air the money to pay her mortgage. It had gone far out of whack. She was not going to manifest those dollars that day, in that moment, in the hour that we spent in conversation. She was not going to manifest those dollars. So she could not change reality. And if her emotion depended upon her reality changing, then she was in for a long, hard winter. But if we could convince her that her emotions don't have to be dependent upon what manifests in this moment, when we were able to convince her that she could go into the vortex where relief is now, she can find relief now. She can't find the money this red hot minute, but she can find relief now this red hot minute. She can find relief. She can go to the vortex. She can find relief. And once we were able to suck her in with our very clever law-based knowledge, in her absence of resistance, the money came that week. So as we're moving forward here today, it is our desire to accomplish a few things with you. We want you to get a whiff of our understanding of the existence of this vibrational reality. And we would like very much if this vibrational reality could become as important to you as it was before you came forth into your physical body. We want you to return to your knowledgeable memory of the whole being that you are. We want you to realize that when life causes you, when someone's rude, you want to be nicer. And the larger part of you becomes that. You become that evolved, expanded, more experienced liver of life through the living of life. So as life causes you to continue to expand And you pay attention to the way you feel, and most important, you care how you feel. Then what begins to happen is you begin to feel your way into the vortex. You begin to feel, you begin to return to this sense of worthiness that is natural to you, to the sense of love that is natural to you, to the sense of thriving in all regards that is natural to you. Who you are is one who, over not just this lifetime, but all that you have lived, you are one who loves. And when you find something, some aspect of your physical time-space reality that is not lovable, and you choose not to love, you condemn or hate or push against, that hatred you feel is your indication of discord, because while you have free will to do it, you are choosing a perspective that the larger part of you does not choose, which means you've stepped out of the vortex. Now, if your inner being, if that God who is truly you would step out of the vortex with you and hate right along with you, you wouldn't feel any discord. Because the discord you feel is your separation. That's really too strong a word, but you're pinching off of the fullness of who you are. Now, here's the thing that we want you to hear. This vortex is calling you always. And it's a powerful call. You have to do some really strident, often chronic thought that holds you out of the vortex for the vortex to not take you in. Do you know where the doorway to this vortex is on this emotional scale that we've been talking to you about? Where joy and empowerment is on one end, and where depression and disempowerment is on the other end, and then all of the emotions in between. There's depression, and then there is revenge, and then there is anger, and then less anger, and overwhelmment and frustration. And pretty soon you get into this place of more optimism or hope. When you reach the vibrational attitude, the emotional attitude of hope, that doorway to the vortex is between hope and believing. So if you're hanging around in the vicinity of hope, that vortex will take you in. And when the vortex takes you in, now what you couldn't see when you were not in the vortex, you now can see from inside the vortex. In other words, what we want you to understand is you're going to feel your way in because you can't see your way in. You may have been hearing us say, we've been saying it for a long time, that when you want something and you talk about why you want it, there's less resistance in why you want it than in how you're going to get it, when it's going to come, who's going to bring it, how long is it going to take, where's it going to be. In other words, those questions to which you don't know answers cause you to stay outside the vortex, because it's aggravating the problem or the absence of what is wanted. We're always calling you into the vortex. We're always calling you forward into that which you really are. And unless you are doing that thing, you'll come easily. And as you allow yourself vibrationally to move into the vibrational proximity of this vortex, what begins to happen to you is you begin to practice the vibration of alignment. You begin to practice the vibration of allowing. You know, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. It's just a habit of thought. So if you've got habits of thoughts about unwanted things, Esther will say, well, Abraham, it's true. It's true. As if that is a good criteria to give your attention to something. And we say there are a lot of true things that are very far away from who you are and what you want. In other words, you cannot continue to beat the drum of justifying the need for something by poking around at what's wrong and be a vibrational match to what you want. So a sort of cliche, an easy way to say it is, you have to start looking toward the solution instead of dramatizing the problem. So, we've been spending time with you. We've been flowing through Esther for a number of years, and in this format we have offered many different explanations in an attempt to help you to understand more fully who you are, but most important, how you fit into the big picture. And we want you to understand that you don't just fit into the big picture, you are the big picture. You are source energy. You are creator. You have come forth to explore for the purpose of taking thought beyond that which it has been before. You are an eternally expanding being. You can't stop that. You can't even slow it down. But what you can do, and many of you do in your physical form, is that you're Contrast causes you to expand, but you don't keep up with your expansion. So the longer you live, the more you expand. The longer you live, the more you expand. The more you hold fast to beliefs and ideas that don't let you take your expansion. So the greater discord happens between who you are and who you are. Creation, everything that you feel, every emotion that you feel, and everything that is happening to you is happening only because of your relationship with who life has caused you to become, and you're allowing it or not. So rather than spending a lot of time talking about all of these points of attraction that could be going on, there are people who are sick with this disease and people who are sick with that disease and people who are having this trauma and this trauma, all kinds of things happening in the scope of human events. You look around, you see it all. But none of that is consequential. What is consequential is this vortex and your relationship to it. If your vortex is spinning as it is and you are holding yourself in fear or anger, you're so far from your vortex that there is a contradiction within you that has this really strong negative energy moving through you, and you don't feel good. When you get over into the vicinity of hope, closer to your vortex, you feel so much better because there's less resistance within you. And when you get into the vicinity of hope, your vortex will frequently take you in. And when you get in, oh, you're going to have a good ride. That's that feeling of elation. The best feeling in the world is moving into the vortex. The exhilaration that you feel, the feeling of passion. And of course, once you get into the vicinity of hope on several subjects and your vortex takes you in, now inside this vortex where you have clear view, now you begin to understand. You begin to know. You begin to believe and know. And that is an emotion that we don't have to tell you, you know, is sublime. That feeling of knowing your value and worthiness. When you recognize how you feel, then you are taking responsibility for what's happening. In other words, when we first began expressing in this way, it was delightful to watch Esther, because when something really wonderful would happen, she would say, I did that. Mm-hmm. And when something not wonderful would happen, she would say, I did that. And there was something empowering about knowing that since she did it, she could do it a different way if she chooses to. But it's easy to forget because there are so many moving parts. It's so easy to give other people credit for the way they behave. That's sort of what feels logical to you. But it isn't logical, because the way they're behaving to you always matches your expectation. People will raise or lower to the level of your expectation. And that's why sometimes it's hard to focus yourself into a new place. As we say, you've been thinking that way, you've been getting feedback, which is why you think that way, so you get feedback, which is why you think that way, which is so you get feedback. It's just a spiral of attraction, you see. But only when you care about how you feel, so you start directing your thoughts based upon how they feel rather than upon the reality. Esther will say, Abraham, but it's true. Not so much anymore, but she tried it for a while. But Abraham, but it's true. You got to give me that. And we say, don't use the truth of something as your criteria for your focus, because there are all kinds of things that are true that you don't want to keep active in your vibration. There is a rampant active vibration around the world, and especially in your planet, that said times are financially hard. And as long as you keep beating that drum, the stuff that's queued up for you in your escrow, in your vibrational reality, will be slowed down, because your thinking that times are hard puts you in a place of disallowing them. Meanwhile, there are people who are accustomed to thriving in all times that are making out like bandits. And then you say, that's wrong. You're not supposed to thrive in this hard economy. We're all supposed to suffer in this suffering economy. We say, hear what you're saying. You want to praise success everywhere you see it. You want to praise thriving everywhere you see it. You want to tune yourself to thriving, not to failing, you see. You can tell by the way you feel how the source within you is looking at it. Source within you is not worried about this economy. And when you do, you feel bad. But you don't feel bad because you're worrying about the economy. You feel bad because you're separating yourself from source, who does not worry about the economy, and using worrying about the economy as your excuse to separate yourself from source.